Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Avocado Gamescast, the gaming podcast that's still going for some reason. Today, we're going to be talking all about exploration, how I move through and interact with game spaces. But before we get to that, let's introduce ourselves. My name's Merve, and joining me, he's been trying to uncancel StarCraft Ghost since 1983. It's Mr. Glitch.
Hi, everybody.
He only plays the Yakuza games for the avian real estate tycoons. It's Andy Tuttle.
Fuck, 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 fuck.
And finally, making her Gamescast debut, she collected all 999 Power Moons, and all she got was this lousy podcast. Give a warm welcome to Lovely Bones.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. I'm very glad to finally get you on the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been trying to make this happen for a while.
Yeah, so it's always good to have some fresh blood because we talk about the same topics over and over again. So it's nice to branch out and, not talk about Sonic and Randy Pitchford for a little while.
I love talking about Sonic.
Oh, you do? Okay, well,
I do.
bye-bye. No, I'm kidding. So, what have you guys been up to lately in the gaming world? What have you guys been playing? Glitch, what have you been playing? It's like I'm at the head of the class and the teacher's just like looking at the classroom and you're all kind of glancing away. Please don't pick me. Please don't pick me.
No one wants to answer. And usually in those situations, I do know the answer, but I'm too anxious to raise my hand or to speak up. This is not one of those times.
Don't pick me, don't pick me, don't pick me. Hi.
All right. Yeah, well, Glitch, what have you been playing?
Well, in terms of new stuff, not much. Just still smashing Brothers.
Well,
Smashing
Smash
them
Brothers
Brothers.
is a fun thing to do.
It
How
is
is
a fun
the
thing,
new
yeah.
Super Smash Bros?
Yeah. Been revisiting Gunstar Heroes. I don't know if anybody's ever played that old Genesis game, but it is a kick in the pants. I love that old game.
What are you playing it on?
The Genesis.
Oh, nice.
Oh, you actually legit have an old Genesis? Just
I have several dead Genocide and one working one.
oh wow.
Is that
That's
the
almost enough Genesises to complete the unholy Sega ritual.
And
Do you
bring
put them
about
like
the
a
32
do you like
exits.
arrange them in a pentagram shape and then like start chanting Sega, Sega, Sega?
Yeah, it's how I keep them working. I
Exactly.
sold my soul to Sega.
Yeah. So how is Gunstar Heroes? I don't know much
it's-
about it.
So it's a little run and gun kind of Contra-y kind of game where you're a little dude and you get to play as a little dude with your little dude buddy if you have two people. And you kind of run from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen and you shoot everything. And it's very cartoony and cute and adorable and incredibly violent in a 16-bit sort of way and just a rousing good time. I highly recommend Gunstar Heroes on whatever platform you can track it down on.
Is it
If
one
you
of,
like-
is it one of those old games with like really bullshit difficulty where you're just like, oh god, why this is clearly born from the arcade?
Believe it or not, Gunstar Heroes is very forgiving. So it has kind of a Contra gameplay in that you basically you're running along. You have your choice of several different types of weapons. You have like a little homing gun or a flamethrower gunny or like a lightning gun or whatever that, and you can pick them up and kind of swap through them as you play the game. But you don't. If you take one hit, you don't die immediately. You have a little health gauge at the top of your screen, just a little number that goes down as you take, impacts. Which I mean, it's basically kind of the Contra equivalent of a bullet hell shooter. So you don't really have a choice but to take hits in the game, unless you're a lot better than me, at least. I don't know.
There are a lot of games where enemies have like these bullshit undodgeable attacks, and it's just a test of how well you've managed to preserve your health until then.
Mm-hmm.
But Gunstar Heroes is not what I mean. It's particularly for its age. It's an early '90s, '92, '93, something like that. Not particularly cruel. It's actually you can make it pretty far in that. At least I can, as a total scrub, I can make it pretty far in that game. just on the lives that it gives you, or the
Well,
life that it gives you.
That's
It's
pretty
a
good.
it's a great co-op game.
Have you been playing it co-op or just by yourself?
Well, lately I've been playing myself, but I have played through it co-op with a buddy.
Oh,
And
nice.
it is a good time.
Like, are there versions of it with like online co-op, or do you have to? Is it like casual co-op?
There is I've never played it. There is a 3DS version. It might support online. I honestly don't know.
I mean, you can't have both people plugging away at the same 3DS, so I assume it's like at least kind of like over Wi-Fi. I'm guessing.
Well, if it has if it has multiplayer, I don't know. I hope
Oh
so.
yeah, they might have
Is it?
patched out.
Yeah, there was a. I'm not sure. I think so. There was the original Gunstar Heroes was a Sega Genesis game, and then there was, I believe, a sequel made for the Game Boy Advance, and the 3DS version might be an adaptation of that.
Ah,
I don't honestly know. But
It was really fun.
I'm sorry.
I said I played the Game Boy Advance version. That was a lot of fun.
Okay, yeah, it's a lot like that.
yeah.
There's a lot to there's a lot of I guess variety in the kinds of actions in the game because it's not exclusively a side scroll. There's also some vertical levels, kind of Battletoadsy, mine shafty level type thing. It's probably one of the earlier games I can think of that really did a good job with I suppose verticality is one of them, but I'm thinking more of the way that it manipulated sprites in the game. A lot of the latter Genesis games did some pretty nifty like sprite scaling and rotations, and like Vector Man and a few other games like that. And I think Gunstar Heroes might have been, kind of where that kicked off. It was kind of the Genesis line of games response to the capabilities of the Super Nintendo.
Well, this was also one of the first games made by Treasure.
It's a Treasure game.
Like Ikaruga and Mischief Makers, and they did a Wario game for the GameCube. So I'm not surprised that it's great. I mean, everything that they've done, I've loved. I don't think I've played a bad Treasure game.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it. If you dig Contra, if you dig the Metal Slug games, it would be right up your alley. And it's very lighthearted. Your enemy, your main boss guy, kind of looks like M. Bison or something.
Nice.
It's very cool.
So, completely just on a tangent, there's a Wario game for the GameCube.
Yeah, I think it's
Wario World.
Wario World. Is that what it was
Wario
called?
World, yeah. It was the last quote unquote made, like it was the class. It was an entry in the Wario Land platformer series, and it was the second to last one, with the last one being the Wii one, Wario Land Shake It.
So, wait, are these like 2D platformers that?
I actually don't know a lot about the game, so I'll
Okay.
defer to someone who's more
Wario-
experienced, if they exist.
Yeah, I mostly played Wario Land Shake It for the Wii, and that is a side-scrolling game, and the graphics are great. It's almost like hand-drawn 2D animation. Wario
nice.
Land, yeah, Wario Land is more like it's 3D, but it's kind of isometric with a little bit of platforming in that, and you're basically just running around collecting jewels. I don't have a lot of experience with the GameCube one, like I said, mostly just the Wii, but. Yeah, I think that was the last Treasure game the last game that Treasure made for Nintendo. I don't know, don't quote me on that. But
I'm looking at
and Shake
screenshots of Wario World, and it looks like it's it was that era for Nintendo that they were pushing really hard on the open world 3D stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's fine. It says it centers mainly on combating enemies, although it requires some platform navigation similar to Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine. Oh man, this is incredible! I want now a 3D platformer starring Wario.
Yeah.
Well, there's
absolutely.
Wario Land for the Virtual Boy. There's your 3D. Everything about it is 3D.
I want another like legit like big budget Wario game of some sort.
A non WarioWare game.
Yeah. I mean,
I really love WarioWare and its aesthetics and its general kind of uniqueness of gameplay, but at the same time, I am sympathetic to the massive internet horde of people who say it's been 10 years since a Wario platformer. Give us another Wario platformer. I'm a little sympathetic to that.
yeah, just like and make it like Wario and Waluigi. Give Waluigi some time as well.
Shake It is really great. I really can't recommend it enough. It's a really fun platformer, and you play it with the Wii remote, but you hold it sideways like a Nintendo controller, and you don't do much motion control with it. You just kind of shake it every now and then to kind of like shake enemies or shake bags of loot. And yeah, I mean if you have a Wii sitting around or you have a Wii U, definitely if you can find a copy, pick it up. It's a lot of fun.
I'll consider that. I just got Kirby's Epic Yarn in the mail today, so.
Nice.
I'm invested heavily in the 10-year-old Nintendo platformer market.
Hey, there's someone cheap at GameStop now.
The Warioverse, if you will. So, Bones, what have you been playing?
Well, as I've probably made clear elsewhere on our website, I've been in Disneyland for the last week. I just got back last night, so been very busy. Like leading up to the flight to California, I was like, okay, I can't start anything that will, that's a commitment or would, that I'd want to keep playing. So I couldn't start Mario Galaxy. I couldn't start Persona 5. I was basically paralyzed gameplay wise. I did start playing Super Mario Brothers 2 on the Switch NES Online, which is
yeah.
It's
so
it's a vertically oriented
the Lost Levels.
platform.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry about that. It's the Japanese one. Well, I guess it's Super Mario Brothers 2 USA. Is its official name.
So the one that was Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah, the one that. Well, it started as Mario, and then it was scrapped as a Mario game, and it became Doki Doki Panic, and then it became Mario again. So it did start as a Mario game.
I actually didn't know that bit of its history.
Yeah, no, it did start as a Mario game, and even saying that aside, like, obviously it's had a larger impact on the Mario universe than the Lost Levels did. Birdo has carried over for a long time, mostly in spin-offs, but still.
Yeah,
Shy Guy. Who doesn't love Shy Guys?
Wigglers are from Super Mario 2?
Wigglers are introduced in World or 3. I'm not sure.
I think World.
Stuff.
Pretty sure World.
You folks would know way better than me. I haven't played very much of the classic Mario games.
Yeah, I'm just getting myself into it now. And yeah, so Super Mario Brothers 2 is a vertically oriented side-scrolling platformer without a timer, unlike, most of the classic Marios. That is a relief. I did, especially after the month I spent playing Blinks, which we won't talk about because I already dedicated a lot of time to that, to talk about that.
We'll put a link to that article in the Linkdump so people can watch you slowly lose your mind as you play it.
Thank you. That is an accurate description. But yeah, Mario Brothers 2 is basically, there's a lot of, like, the very first level is, you're at the top of a cliff and you have to jump down the cliff and jump down for several screens before you start seeing enemies and start, like, seeing a world that you can traverse through. It's a really cool opening.
This is going to be the weirdest comparison, but you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of how in Spec Ops The Line you're always descending.
Yes.
It's like you're descending down into, like, platforming hell.
Yeah, and and Silent Hill 2 has the classic sequence where you jump down a series of holes pretty late in the game to parallel James's descent into madness. I don't think Mario Brothers 2 is particularly unreasonable in its design or anything. It's hard, but most games are hard for me.
This is the one where you can pick up and throw stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah, you cannot jump on the head of your enemy to kill it. You have to either pull vegetables out of the ground and throw them, or you have to jump on the head of your enemy and then reach down and grab them so that you're slinging them over your shoulder, and then you throw them either off the edge or at another enemy. And for some reason, I just physically acted all of this out.
That's fine. I use gestures all the time when I'm on the podcast, and I live alone, so nobody's watching them. So, Andy,
I did also.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Really wanted to quickly share this other thing, which is something kind of fascinating that I learned while I was at Disneyland. So we also went to Disney's California Adventure, which I was not aware was a distinct venture from Disneyland, but it is. It's right next to it. And there's a big Pixar devoted section called Pixar Pier, right? Yeah. And one of the attractions there is called Toy Story Midway Mania, which opened in 2008 and then got a slight redesign after Toy Story 3 came out. So here's hoping they added Key and Peele's circus characters and the living spork from Toy Story 4, right? Anyway, Toy Story Midway Mania is basically it's a 3D shooting gallery where you have this mounted gun that you have like a string that you pull on attached to it. And you're stopping at each of these like big electronic screens while wearing 3D glasses, and you're shooting these varying size and varying point amount targets. And this was turned into a Wii game the next year after the ride opened, called just Toy Story Mania. I have not played that Wii version of this experience, but I can say I think the ride's probably more satisfying than the Wii game because you're actually using
they immerse you in a room, right?
And yeah, you're in a room, you're moving around, there's exciting decorations everywhere. And you're also using a physical mounted gun. And yeah, I suspect that the game on its own is probably not very satisfying, but the ride's really fun.
I wonder if they could make a version of it for the Vive.
Pardon me? Sorry.
I wonder if they could make a version of it for like the HTC Vive, and then you'd be able to play it in VR. I don't know if that would work.
Oh, that is a legitimately great idea.
Which means Disney will never do it.
Yeah, we've talked a lot in the games threads about Disney doesn't have a dedicated video game division. The people who cover the video games, who cover like the production and marketing of the video games, is their overall like marketing section. They don't have a dedicated section, and that's kind of why they don't still understand what's good and what to do about video games.
Yeah, and they used to have an internal game development house, but that all shut down when they ended Disney Infinity. So now who knows what they're gonna do with all their licenses.
Yeah. I played a Toy Story 2 platformer on my Sega Dreamcast when I was a kid. That thing is hell to play, but it was really cool. I really wish that they would continue to do stuff like that.
Isn't it bizarre though that like the best Disney, like modern Disney video games are like Kingdom Hearts games where they just threw a bunch of anime boys in, and that's like the best version of a Disney game you can play? Well,
I mean, talk to my partner Library Lass, or frankly me, who I'm not nearly as completely passionately devoted to Disney as she is, but I'm still a pretty big fan. Talk to us about how we feel about how Kingdom Hearts represents Disney sometimes.
Not very well, but no. As somebody who just sort of who hasn't seen that much Disney, but just absorbed it. The fact that if you're looking for a high production, a high budget, a lot of development time being put into rendering Disney worlds and being able to explore them, Kingdom Hearts is really your only option at this point, and that upsets us. It's not just weird. I will say it works for someone like me who hasn't watched that many Disney films, but has just sort of absorbed them through cultural osmosis. Yeah, it just recreates the feeling that I think these films have, despite not having seen them. So it works for me, but I can imagine it not working for someone who's a huge Disney fan. Yeah, no, I think that is a totally valid perspective to have on it. I can totally see why. If you're basically just touring something that you only know from a distance, then it does feel like an interesting experience of it in its own right. And also, we all know your fondness for JRPG stuff in general. Yeah, I'll put up with a lot of bullshit if I can if I enjoy sort of the gameplay and the exploration. And
Yeah.
we'll get into exploration in a little bit. But first, Andy, what have you been playing?
So I've been playing, according to the internet, the worst game of all time, Anthem.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
so we had a chat about that on the podcast last time, and the
mhm.
consensus seemed to be that it was okay, but not good as it needed to be. I don't know how you feel about the game.
I mean, I really like it. It's just it's weird seeing all the negativity around it because I don't understand it. Um, I think I don't know. It's weird. So like I really like Destiny a lot. I thought that was a great game, and it started off rocky as well. So I feel like Anthem's just going to kind of follow that same trajectory of like being kind of shit on when it first comes out, but eventually it'll get better. You kind of see that with Fallout 76 also. When it came out, it was just hated, and now they've kind of released their like game plan for the next for all of 2019, and it might get a little bit better. So,
We don't know. Yeah, for me, the thing about Anthem hate that kind of perplexes me is that it's not like a broken game.
no, it's not. It's a lot of fun to play.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is everybody, all, not everybody, but I've read articles that say like the best part is the flying, and I think that's kind of bullshit. I think the
Oh
flying,
no, it's like the worst part
yeah,
because the
the
flying
flying is
doesn't control.
terrible, and they say
Um,
combat is great, and I'm like, nah, the combat's okay. So it's like I've got, I almost wonder if people have even played it because they
yeah.
a lot of
Well,
the negative things they'll say, it just I'm not experiencing them. I don't know.
I like my experience with the demo was that the combat was really solid, and just on the ground movement through the world was really good. The world was really fun to explore, but the flight controls were garbage. Apparently, they've sort of fixed that in the full release, but the flight controls in the demo were just garbage.
Yeah, they're bad, and they want you to fly around, but they keep putting all these obstacles in your way that hinder your flying. So you'll be flying and you'll like bump into a cliff and you just immediately fall down. And it's like, okay, like this is like why the fuck is that here? Why did you make these little tiny corridors for me to fly through?
Yeah,
If
that's not very
if
satisfying.
yeah, if I just barely touch the wall, I'm instantly on the ground. And it's like, okay, this is so.
Garbage. Yeah. So, have you been playing it with friends, or have you been playing it just with randos?
Just playing with random people. I think so here's the thing about Destiny was you could play through the whole thing kind of by yourself, and you do a lot of missions alone, and you can get through the whole thing by yourself. And occasionally they'll put you into a group with people. Where it seems like with Anthem, every time you go on a mission, you're playing with other people. So I read these things that said, this game is horrible for solo players. You'll never get anywhere through the game. And I think that's just incorrect because I've been playing several missions with people and we always finish them. And I've never had a problem getting into a group of people. I've never had a problem with people not playing the game well. We're all just kind of just playing together. And I really don't understand the whole
Yeah,
solo
my
can't
my
do that.
thing with that is, um, it's definitely if you were the only person and you didn't have anyone else in your party, the game would be basically unplayable.
Hmm.
Um, but it seems like for whatever reason, the game just is good at pairing you up with people who are sort of taking it seriously. I don't
Yeah,
know
that
exactly.
that might just be because it's still early. Maybe eventually people will kind of get sick of it. Maybe it'll get harder to meet people if the game just really gets bad. But I've never had a problem with matching up with other players. I think the only solo part that's going to be hard is there's a free roam mode that you can do where you just kind of like fly around the map and look for events to have happening.
Yeah,
I did read an article that said that those are really difficult to do because I guess they put you in an instance with just three other people. So there's four of you on this giant map with no way to contact each other. And there's no kind of indication that an event is happening. So if you're in the middle of fighting a giant, like epic boss or whatever, and you want people to come help you, you can't tell them, hey, come to this part of the map. You just have to kind of hope you find your way towards them. I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like that's kind of half baked, and it feels like the entire game was sort of designed around, okay, you're going to get three other buddies to play with you, and then you'll coordinate like on Discord or Origin chat or what have you, and then
Right.
play it together.
You know what I do love about the game is the kind of the world building and the characters. Again, I'm going to compare it to Destiny. In Destiny's hub world, where you kind of like hang out between missions and quests and stuff, there isn't really a lot to do, and there's nobody to talk to, right? Like you just kind of like go from kind of different NPCs to buy your stuff or whatever. But in Anthem, the hub world that they have, it's a lot bigger than the hub world in Destiny, and there's constantly characters around that you'll meet and talk to, and they'll have their own kind of like. Some of them will give you quests, and some of them will give you missions, or contracts or whatever. And then there's some people who you're just learning a story about from. It's like there's this guy in the hub world, and he's played by Joe Latruglio from Brooklyn Nine-Nine in the State.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he's like this total asshole, and all he does is talk shit about everybody else in the hub world. And he's like, "Oh yeah, your Cypher Owen is like, did you know that he like fucked up in Cypher school or whatever?" And you're just like, "What?" And then he's like, "Oh yeah, the bartender, like, did you know he did this?" And he's got all the like gossip and shit about people in the hub. And I don't know, it's funny. It's really funny. And I was surprised, not only is he in this game, but Kristen Shaw from Bob's Burgers does a voice, and Jack McBrayer is also in the game.
Oh, nice. They got some real talent, like kind of not no disrespect, kind of like the really popular B tier talent.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that's a completely fair descriptor. As a big fan of all of those people.
Yes.
So like I like all those people.
But that's a very stacked comedy cast.
Yeah.
I looked up the voices on IMDb, and those were the only three comedians that I saw, or at least recognized. But yeah, I mean, the game is a lot of fun. I think it's if people stick with it, and if EA and BioWare don't give up on it, it's going to be fun, you know. And it's what's funny about it is it's making me rethink my opinion of Fallout 76, which a game I've never played, but all I did was based all of my opinions on the kind of negative reaction to its launch. And so now I'm wondering, maybe Fallout 76 is good. I don't know. Have any of you played Fallout 76?
I know a couple of people have it and say it's good. A couple of community members on the Avocado say it's good. But I think the bigger backlash to Fallout 76 was mostly over just like the game being broken and full of glitches.
Yeah.
And Anthem does have bugs, but they're a lot less severe than Fallout 76 is.
Yeah, I've had a couple of weird things happen in Anthem. There's one, so I don't want to get too like esoteric or whatever weird with it. But so when you get your loot, you have to go to this. You can go to this vault keeper or something like that, right? And you can break it down into materials to craft with. And one of the things that happens to me in the game, and I don't know what it is, but so I'll be able to break down, like maybe I'll have like 10 new guns, and I want to break down 8 of them into craftable shit. And so I'll be able to break down like 2 or 3 of them, and then the menu freezes. I have to back out of that vault and then go back into the vault, and then I can do 3 more, and then I have to back out because the game froze again. It's very odd. So that's the only real big issue I've had with the game so far. Other than that, no other.
Yeah. I mean, that is a pretty serious bug, but it does sound like at least you're not getting frozen enemies that just don't react, or like T-posed enemies just floating around the map, shit like that.
Yeah, no,
I love T-poses.
Not weird.
Oh yeah, T-poses are almost sort of like scarier. If they like put them in the game seriously, then I'm all for it.
Have you ever seen those old like I think they're like Chinese or Japanese vampire movies where they just have their arms straight out in front of them and they hop around?
the
They're called like
Jiangshi.
Chengshi.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that.
Pardon my American just
Oh, I don't know how to pronounce it either. I don't know a word of Chinese.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, the Jiangshi is the Chinese hopping vampire.
And they're awesome.
yeah.
They're the
Yeah.
best.
They had the
Everything.
DLC for Sleeping Dogs. One of them was just about a Changsha invasion in Hong Kong, and it's
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah, one of the characters' skins in Overwatch is their Halloween special is a Cheng Shi or
Yeah.
whatever.
Is it May?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That is actually pretty funny.
And she looks very cute in her,
Vampire
Chinese,
outfit.
Chinese hopping zombie costume.
Yeah. So as for what I've been playing, so I have been playing Kingdom Hearts, and we don't need to talk about that because we'll talk more about Kingdom Hearts. But I have been playing this indie game called When Ski Lifts Go Wrong.
It's an awesome title.
Yeah. It's sort of like, Bridge Constructor. I don't know if you guys have ever played that. It's sort of like that, except for it's ski lifts instead of bridges. And the whole point is to build ski lifts to take skiers up a hill, and they have to avoid obstacles. You have to build your ski lift with with few enough materials to kind of get it in under budget. So
Remarkably accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, having spent time stuck on a dead ski lift, I think this game is right up my alley.
Yeah, it's
Does it simulate hypothermia?
it simulates spinal injuries.
Oh no.
Given that. But yeah, basically, if you're not careful and you just let the ski chair just slam into a tree, then you'll watch as the skier falls out of the chair and just kind of bends in half, and then there's blood everywhere.
My God.
It's like this is a T-rated puzzle game.
Yeah, no, that sounds like it would satisfy my the hole in my heart where roller coaster tycoon being used exclusively to murder customers.
Oh, I was whenever I played Roller Coaster Tycoon, I was ruthless. If I saw one customer in my park with a frown, what I used to do is I would make a special drowning pool and I'd fence it off. Anytime I saw a sad customer, I just drop them in the pool and drown. And the thing is, the way the game calculates park ratings, it depends on the sentiments of the current guests. So if you drown unhappy guests, you make your park rating go up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. It doesn't.
Kind of a murder scale in there to determine your sadism, like a sadism level. That's what they need.
Yeah, I mean, I
They
think
need to track-
it can ruin your park safety record if you drown too many people. But I think
Too many
the gains in park rating outweigh the safety concerns. So it's a good way to get your park rating up, at least in the short term. Anyway, back to when ski lifts go wrong. So the main challenge in this game isn't so much completing the level, because you can just use all the materials available to you and generally get the skiers where they need to go. The main challenge comes from trying to get it in under budget. And then you get special trophies for each level if you manage to use few enough materials. So it's a nice little puzzle game. I wouldn't say go out and buy it right away, but if you want something that has sort of bite-sized challenges that you can complete on your commute or just play in bed before going to sleep, it's that kind of game. And it's also very good for handheld mode because it's touchscreen compatible. So if that's the kind of thing you want, then go for it.
Is this for the Switch?
Yeah. It's on PC and Switch. I don't know about other platforms. I've never played it in TV mode. I've only ever played it in handheld mode.
Is it just ski lifts, or are you trying to run an entire resort?
Oh, it's level based. So each level is building a new ski lift. There are some levels where instead of building ski lifts, you're building jumps and ramps for downhill skiers. So that kind of mixes things up a bit.
Okay.
And those are actually even harder because now you kind of control the skier as they go downhill. So you're in charge both of making sure that the run is safe, but also that you kind of make the skier lean forward and lean back appropriately so that when they go through flips, they don't land on their heads. So there's a little bit of that in there as well.
That sounds
which
stressful.
it's really fun to watch skiers land on their heads.
I had certain bad experiences with trying to ski when I was a kid. So I don't think I would want to recreate that in video game form.
I grew up in Canada and I've actually never been skiing. That's a little bit shameful.
Do you at least like hockey?
Sorry?
Do you at least like hockey?
I do like hockey, although I haven't followed it in a long time. But like I did all the other skating stuff. All the other winter stuff. I used to go sledding. I snowshoed. I was an avid snowshoer growing up. And I've been skating many, many times. I can do all of that. I've just never been skiing. Neither cross country nor downhill. So I've never had the experience of just like being on a chairlift and getting smashed into a tree and breaking my spine, which is, a common Canadian rite of passage. So
This traumatic spinal injury.
yeah, I mean, all my friends have growing up had like some skiing or snowboarding injury. One of my friends used to have like this giant scar on her arm from when she crashed snowboarding, and it was such a bad injury that the bone poked through the skin.
Ah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, sorry for grossing you folks out.
I ran into a tree.
Just for fun or while skiing?
Well, I mean, it was kind of fun. I think so.
I actually
right
do
up
have...
until the sudden stop.
Oh yeah, that'll hurt. I actually do have a running into a tree story related to video games. So you guys remember when Pokemon Go was huge and everybody was playing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers that.
So I was just running in the park near where I lived one day, and I saw this one lady. She had her phone in hand, and she was happily playing Pokemon Go. And I just saw her. She was like happily trying to pursue a Pokemon, and she just ran straight into a bush and disappeared.
No.
I didn't see what happened to her. So I think she lives in the bush now.
I live here now. This is home.
It's a Pokespot. It's my bush
Pidgey.
now.
When Pokemon Go first came out, and it was what got my older brother Sean back into Pokemon, because the last Pokemon game he had played before that was Pokemon Blue, the original. Yeah, he got into Pokemon Go, and my parents, specifically my dad, asked, "Oh, that's still a thing, Pokemon? That's still around?" I had to look him in the eyes and said, "This is a multi-billion-dollar franchise." Yes, it's still around.
Yeah, I think my parents have like this vague awareness of Pokemon. Like they know who Pikachu is, and like my mom might know who like Ash Ketchum is, but beyond that, I don't think they asked me about Pokemon Go. They asked me if I was playing it, and I was like, no, sorry, Mom and Dad, because they know I'm into video games. So whenever something makes the news, they ask me if I know about it.
Have you been fording the night?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, I was doing an impression of an older relative asking if you have been fording the night.
Oh,
because that
Fortnite
joke
night?
isn't old yet. I'm sorry.
No, my sister asked me about Fortnite, and I had to explain the whole story of Fortnite to her.
I had to explain Fortnite to Wolfman Jew.
Yeah,
You guys need to explain Fortnite to me.
I could do that.
long story short, was supposed to showcase Unreal Engine 4, came out to mildly positive reviews, but not many people played it. Then they copied the Battle Royale mod from PUBG, and it blew up because it was free to play, and now all the teenagers play it.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, no, I'm
That
caught
is
up.
Fortnite in a nutshell. I've never played a second of Fortnite, but
I
Sorry, go
tried
ahead.
PUBG on my phone, and all it did was make my phone really hot.
I don't think PUBG could possibly run on a phone, even
I
if
haven't-
it allegedly can.
I have an iPhone 5C. If I try to just like open a browser on my phone, I crash it.
Oh no.
Because websites eat up so much RAM these days. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I've been playing, and also a rant about Pokemon Go. So one thing we wanted to discuss is, before we get into sort of the meat of this episode, is a Nintendo Direct happened, I guess, last week now or week before. I've lost track of time.
It's 2 weeks ago now.
2
Almost
weeks.
2 weeks.
Oh, okay, almost
As
2 weeks
of
ago.
this recording.
All right. So by the time you hear this, it happened 4 months ago. And so this was an interesting presentation from Nintendo, because they put out, like, they're kind of the usual announcements you'd expect. Like, oh, there's a demo out for Yoshi's Crafted World. There's footage from the new Fire Emblem game. Like, everybody's expecting this sort of stuff. But then they had this surprise that's kind of taken the internet by storm, which is essentially Tetris Battle Royale. It's called Tetris 99. I don't know. Have any of you guys been playing it?
Yeah, I have.
I thought you were talking about some old Super Nintendo game.
We'll get
So
to that.
they've made a Tetris game, which you try to compete to be one of the last people standing, and the way you compete against the other players is you can send like junk bricks and target other players and screw them over.
Well, that's just multiplayer Tetris. That's how, like, if you played two-player Tetris, if you got a tetraminimum or whatever it is, you got 4 lines in a row, you'd screw over, you'd drop a whole bunch of pieces on your opponent and screw them over.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
now
now
there's
imagine-
100 of them.
Yeah, imagine doing that with
Fun.
99 other people.
Well,
And you can pick whom to target. So if you really hate the number 37 for some reason, you can be
And
like,
I
fuck
do.
you, 37. And
37.
Fucking
That's-
37.
I've been playing it. How do you choose who to send it to?
I don't know.
Okay.
'Cause I haven't been playing it
I
at all.
play Luminous Remastered in my off time, and that game by itself I find extremely overwhelming and difficult personally. I don't think I could possibly handle multiplayer Tetris. I'll try it because it's free and I already have online, but but I will be decimated, I am certain.
It's a lot.
I don't imagine ever finishing higher than 90th place if I were to play that game.
Right?
I've made it to number 7.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
So what do they call it when you win? Do they call it Tetris Royale? What do they call it?
I don't know. I've never won, so I haven't found out yet. Blocky something. I don't know.
Winner, winner, blocky dinner?
Yeah, winner, L block dinner.
Yeah.
Player unknown Tetris.
That's basically what it is. It's,
Yeah.
I think it's, I know we're all like ragging on the Battle Royale genre these days, but I'm genuinely happy that they've taken this by now overused concept and made something cool with it.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, I'm not completely opposed to Battle Royale. I wish it wasn't quite as dominant as it was, but like before Fortnite even became a thing, I was watching PUBG videos just kind of casually, and I didn't think that it was ever going to be a big deal.
I think that's
But
the
I
problem with
think
Battle
it's like-
Royale is nobody's really doing anything different with it until Tetris came out. You know what I mean? I mean, I guess Apex Legends is kind of
There's
different.
not enough iteration on the concept for sure.
Yeah,
Right.
Apex Legends made it squad based, correct?
That's what I understand, right? It's kind of like a squad-based Battle Royale game.
Yeah, I mean
I like that
that's like a small tweak on the formula, which I
You
appreciate.
can have teams in PUBG too.
yeah.
Sorry, but
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
But at
but
the end though, do you have to like turn on your teammates if you kill everybody else though?
No, an Awful Squad has taught me that you can make it all the way through. And,
yeah,
you know,
Awful
beat your
Squad
chicken
was the
dinner.
videos I was watching.
Yeah.
That I was referring to.
Okay. I should probably try a battle royale at some point. There's just these genres that have completely passed me by. All these obsessions that popped up in the industry. So I missed the MOBA train. I didn't hop on that. I didn't jump on the hero shooter craze. I've completely missed out on battle royale. I feel super old when I say that. I'm in my 20s. I don't.
Well, that's the problem with these flash in the pan kind of like genres that come out it has a very specific window of time that you can actually enjoy it at its height, and then after
Yeah.
that, it's just kind of like only the hardcore are left. And if you aren't part of that, it's like if you haven't been playing, like for example, if you haven't been playing Dota 2 since it came out, and you try to play it now, you're gonna get fucked. That's kind of how
Yeah, and yelled at in Russian. So
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I only just got Overwatch late in 2018, and like I really enjoy. I'm really happy with the game. It's not like as someone who grew up playing first-person shooters and then took a long break from them, this is pretty much the most satisfying way to get back into it with this, big, kind of wacky, not super well developed, but interesting world and full and characters. Um, yeah, I really enjoy it, but I can palpably feel that, I already missed the perfect window for actually playing this, just because I
Yeah.
didn't have something that could run it.
yeah, for me, it's always been that I've kind of gravitated more towards single player first person shooters. So I miss out all these multiplayer crazes because I haven't played that much multiplayer since I was a kid. My big multiplayer game as a kid was Command and Conquer Renegade, which was, I mean, I still think that's one of the greatest multiplayer modes of all time. But it didn't really train me to go be good at fragging noobs. It trained me to stand behind a tank and fire a healing gun at it. So
That's valid. You are valid.
yeah, I am a valid FPS player. I say as I fire a healing gun at the building that my enemies are trying to blow up. So a couple of other interesting announcements in that direct. A new Box Boy game, which looks adorable.
Yes. Library Lass had never heard of Box Boy before that direct, but we were really excited that we could play it together.
Yeah, I think the characters just look adorable.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be enough to carry me.
It's a really cute art style. I did not realize that it was Hell Laboratory. That was a shock to me. I had heard of the
Yeah.
series, but it's strange that they're, as far as I can tell, doing better with this series that only started a couple years ago than Kirby. To me, like in terms of actual like design and like improving your design over time, it seems that Box Boy is improving itself continually in a way that Kirby hasn't. It's for some time.
Well, what was the
Yeah.
last Kirby game that you liked?
Let's maybe save that conversation for another time. I'm sorry.
All right.
I will say I tried the demo for, was it Kirby All Stars or whatever the
Star
Switch
Allies.
one is,
Mm-hmm.
Star
and
Allies.
it was. Let me put it this way: I felt like it could be a fun game if I were playing it and fucking around with friends, but just as a solo experience, I don't need to buy this.
Yeah, Star Allies is pretty boring. Like it just amounts to AI doing half your work for you.
Star
not
Allies, that's what it's
work.
called.
Yes.
Kirby All Stars. What was I even thinking? Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
there is basically a Kirby All Stars. It was the 20th anniversary Dream Collection. Anyway,
Okay. I was gonna say there aren't that many characters in Kirby. Is it just like what would an all-star Kirby game look like? It was just like Kirby and,
Oh, well,
and
it's a-
Meta Knight and DDD.
well, it's a collection of all of the games from the early '90s through the N64 one. But no, okay. Kirby, DDD, Meta Knight, Bandana D is beloved.
Oh, I didn't
so-
know there were beloved Kirby characters.
Yeah, no, oh yeah.
Sorry.
Star
No, I-
Allies is kind of an all-star game because you can there's like these temples that you go to where you can like recruit characters from previous Kirby games, and part of their Nintendo's launch games as a service thing that they kind of do for some of their games now, where they launch free DLC throughout the entire year, was like every 3 months you got 3 or 4 new characters to add to the Kirby game, and they took them from all different games in the series. There's like that. There's like a hamster named Rick that came in, and
Yeah, they did.
with the
They did
paint.
9 months worth of free updates, which included an entire new like single player campaign.
Oh wow, that's actually. I like how Nintendo's been sort of doing this post-launch support on the Switch.
Yeah.
Like they took Mario Tennis Aces from this relatively bare bones experience to like just adding characters and features left, right, and center.
Yeah. I do
was
wish in some of
super
those cases that the content was more substantial from the get-go
Yeah.
and not
for
being
sure.
fixed in post. But no,
Yeah.
with Kirby, it was really cool that like, yeah, you had 9 months of just adding more beloved characters that probably haven't been seen in a while. In a lot of cases, Marks. You get to have Marks as a player character and ally. This is not Karl Marx, Merve.
I was gonna say I love how you turned to me as to be the guy who could raise that objection. No, they should put like old famous philosophers in like fighting games and shit.
Totally. No, I would play the shit out of that. But yeah, no, Kirby actually has a pretty substantial cast of characters. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, good. And I look forward to his next appearance where he fights Socrates because that's gonna be...
Wasn't there an SNK fighting game where you did play as old historical figures? Was it World
Maybe.
Heroes?
Maybe I don't know.
I think it was. Like
They should make a gender bend version like they did with Tag Team Heroines.
Oh yeah, with Girl Terry. Yeah. Actually, one game that does have old historical figures that's kind of weird is the Fate games. Did you ever play Fate Extella for the PS4?
No, sorry.
It's like kind of like Dynasty Warriors where you just kind of move from area to area, beating the crap out of a bunch of bad guys. But I feel like you play as gender bended versions of historical figures. So I want to say maybe Christopher Columbus is in there, but a girl, and I don't, it's very weird. I don't know.
Yeah, this is a realm I'm pretty unfamiliar with. I'm sorry, I can't help you.
That's you know what? They should just make more fighting games with famous people.
Absolutely.
Or just more games in general.
There are fighting games with deities. Those are kind of fun. Nice in
yeah.
a nice blasphemous sort of way.
Oh yeah, they have Smite, which has
Yeah.
like I mean that's a MOBA with deities.
So there's a fighting game. I forget what it's called, but where you can you can beat the crap out of somebody with stone tablets as Moses and.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that, like especially in Japanese games where
It's a Japanese game, definitely.
Yeah, using Judeo-Christian imagery in that way isn't considered taboo necessarily.
Which I think is
you
awesome,
get all this.
personally.
Yeah, I mean, like I wasn't raised Christian, so I have no skin in this game. But I do think it's interesting that they do use that imagery in that way, which you would never see in an American game, for instance.
Yeah.
Other stuff that was cool from the Direct. What do you guys think of Astral Chain?
I'm gonna play it.
I think it looks dumb as shit, but but I love and respect Platinum Games on a base gameplay design level so much. They'll probably at least, I don't know. I'd like to give it a shot. I just hated everything I saw, like character-wise and dialogue-wise.
I've been calling it like Hot Cops the game.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. But I do like the idea of having a, I guess, nanotech dog that you have on a whip and throw at people. I don't even know what it is.
Did they use a dog in Metal Gear Rising?
Yeah.
But it's the dog made of nanotech.
There's a dog in Metal Gear 5. I can't talk with this.
Platinum made a Metal Gear game where you played as Ryzen, and he had like a hot dog.
Revengeance.
Yes,
Yeah,
Rising Revengeance, which I forgot Platinum made that. You're right. I apologize.
Yeah, that's the one that had the weird ass slicing system where you could just like slice a watermelon into 18 pieces or some shit like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it has an articulated slicing system.
That's the word I was looking for. Articulated slicing. I don't know what to think. I think it looks dope, but it doesn't take much to make me think something looks dope. So I'm totally down for Hot Pant Police, the game. We'll see. Also, I really like that apparently you can put on a dog mascot costume and pick up trash.
Yes, I did enjoy that part.
So that's
Already game of the year.
Yeah.
It looks like a
Dog of the year.
90s anime. That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Like a really early 90s, late 80s anime with, something like Bubblegum Crisis or something like that.
Or the kind of OVA where there's a lot of gratuitous profanity only in the English dub.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have seen that Prosy D skit where he compares like fan subs to regular subs.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, the like fuck you Sasuke skit. We're gonna
Sosuke Bosuke.
Yeah, we're gonna put that in the link dump.
Excellent.
Yeah, sorry, I actually don't know much about Boruto's dad. So, what else do you guys find interesting from the direct?
I love that it started. They just went in and kicked the year off, not counting like the various tweets that happened in January. They kicked the year off with approximately 90 seconds worth of just Super Mario Maker 2. Here's all the new shit you can do in it. It's coming in 4 months. Fuck you.
It's coming in 4 months. Fuck you. That is a good way of putting it.
That was a really nice surprise.
Yeah, they had slopes.
Yeah.
Now you can slide down
is the
shit.
big thing.
Ooh.
But no, there's a lot of
Mario has a
awesome
hat.
content. I was Mario as a cat will always be good. Mario, and not only Mario now, but also Toadette and Luigi. I guess Luigi could already do it in 3D World, but anyway.
They have Toadette cat costumes?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They
That's
show
awesome.
it. They only show it in the promotional like title card that they have. But yeah, you have Toadette in the cat suit.
Okay.
There's been a lot of speculation about like what kind of multiplayer extent it might have because of them showing off Luigi and Toadette and stuff. So that's fun. We already know a lot of new features, but we don't know everything. There's still some mystique to everything, and also just in general, just want to very proudly point out that in the 2D Mario Franchise Festival, I literally said Mario Maker 2 is probably happening really soon.
And it's coming. I hope they don't require the online service to share and download levels.
I am certain they will.
Yeah, I'd say that's a given.
It's unfortunate. I respect why someone would want to opt out on the basis of that alone, but they're absolutely going to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess
only
I'm not getting
2 years.
Mario
Not
Maker
that
2.
bad.
Like
Yeah, I'm
like
just
the Mario Odyssey balloon thing. I don't know how familiar any of you are with that, but there was a post launch update to Mario Odyssey that lets you basically like either search for collectibles that other people place somewhere in the levels, or place your own collectibles and have other people look for them. And I couldn't access that on so Library Last and I share a Switch, right? And we have 3 main accounts on it. And one of them has online, but it's not shared across all 3 accounts because we like to have distinct playthroughs on things sometimes, and that's the only way you can do that sometimes. So the account that I played Mario Odyssey on does not have online, so that account cannot access the Luigi's Balloon game whatsoever.
Oh no.
Even though it's just like data files. It's not an active direct online interaction. So I'm certain that's what they're doing with Mario Maker 2.
Yeah, and that was a pretty boring online.
Oh, I
feature,
love
even when it was free.
When I tried it, I thought that was really awesome. Personally, I'm a big fan of it, but I
Big
also
fan of hide and seek. Yeah,
I played it for about 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, found the balloon. I'll go hide the balloon, and
correct me if
off
I'm
it will
wrong,
go into the
but
ether, and perhaps someone in some distant land in some distant future will find my balloon. Why do I care?
correct me if I'm wrong, but if I recall correctly, wasn't like when you interact with Luigi to start the game to start that activity, isn't he like being held up by balloons?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't
he's
imagine that he's just
floating
kind
on
of
the
like
balloon.
he's kind of like floating a few feet off the ground, and he's almost like lying down or lying on his stomach, but in midair.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't imagine that. Okay, good.
Oh, you
Because
didn't-
if I just imagined that, I'd be a little worried.
Oh, you
I'm
did.
sure-
It's all in your
Yeah, I'm
mind.
sure Freud would have something to say about that.
Hey, sometimes a Luigi in a balloon is just a Luigi in a balloon.
Hey, listen, this is a judgment-free zone. No one No one's going to tell you that you can't think about Luigi in whatever way you like on your own time. That's
I
the
mean,
only podcast I'm willing to be on.
add a "wa" in front of it, and I'll go wild. That's all.
God damn it.
Yeah, so that was a direct. Showed off a bunch of stuff. Super Mario Maker 2, Tetris 99, Hot Cops. It's all good stuff.
Yeah.
So
Zelda remake is pretty cool.
oh yeah, they're remaking a Zelda and they're making it chibi.
Yeah,
That's probably the biggest thing of the direct.
Yeah, it's basically.
Oh yeah, I kind of glossed over that, didn't I? Because I'm not like a Zelda fan, so I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah, it's not just chibi, but it's basically like I'm not the first person to make this comparison. It's basically like the 70s Rake and Bass stop motion style, which is a really cool way to continue iterating on this craft design philosophy that they've been doing for years with Yoshi and whatnot.
Cool, I can't wait to play Zelda's Shiny New Year.
Well, I'm excited.
It's cool. I like the way it looks. It's almost like they took toys and photographed them, and they're moving. You know what I mean?
Rankin Bass, yeah, that's exactly what Bone said.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, given the I guess the kind of the conceit of the game in general, it makes sense. It'd be a neat aesthetic to check out.
Yeah, using the toyetic aesthetic for this particular entry of the series makes a lot of thematic sense for reasons that we won't get into because we're not going to spoil this 26-year-old game that's getting released.
Spoiler alert!
We've spoiled a lot of stuff by accident on this podcast.
I know.
Sorry. We always put spoiler warnings in the link dump. I'm pretty diligent about that.
Yes.
But sometimes things slip through the cracks because I'm not paying attention or I don't consider certain things to be spoilers. So sorry, guys. So yeah, that was the direct.
Sorry, before we move on to that, there's other Nintendo news too with Reggie.
Oh yeah, Reggie. Yeah. Reggie Fils-Aime is retired as.
Yeah, he's getting replaced by a guy named Samus. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Bowser.
Bowser. Yeah, Doug
Bowser. So Reggie Fils-Aime is retiring as head of Nintendo of America.
Can we say nepotism?
For Doug Bowser getting
Bowser.
the job. It's more like considering Bowser's status in the Mushroom Kingdom, it's more like a hostile takeover.
No, you see, but this isn't one of the main members of the Koopa family. This isn't the patriarchal Bowser or any of his numerous belligerent children. This is his cousin Doug Bowser, who went to accounting school. He's very.
I'm Doug Bowser, my CPA. Nice to meet you.
And he was apparently Reggie's actual protege in the years that he's been at Nintendo. Like he was handpicked for replacing him.
Yeah, it seems like he'll be a good dude.
I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah. By the way, that does sound like a plot from the upcoming unannounced Paper Mario game.
Yes.
Where Mario and Luigi run into somebody who looks like Bowser. He's like, "No, my name's Doug. I don't know what my cousin's up to. Sorry, guys." And then he becomes he's like the banker in that game or something.
Yeah, no, I desperately want a Mario RPG with Doug Bowser now. And the guy, the internet's been aflame for the last few days since this announcement, but the guy was already leaning into the joke not that long after he was hired. He wears a Team Bowser shirt at publicity events sometimes.
I like that they have. I mean, it's corporate, it's marketing, and that's we can talk about the ethics of that at length. But I do like people who sort of lean into the role and have fun with it.
Yeah.
If
Nintendo's always good for that.
Yeah. If nothing else, it's just fun to see.
Yeah.
To see them engage with the fans that way. So that's what's been up with Nintendo. This is your weekly Nintendo update, I guess. And now let's move on to discussing the meat of this podcast, or what we originally all convened to talk about, which is exploration and how we interact with game spaces. So by exploration, we mean how we travel through a game world and how we interact with it. So what I want to know from you folks is, which game worlds and levels have you most kind of just enjoyed moving through and experiencing?
I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you brought it up, the first thing that came to mind was Mario Kart 64, and in the Royal Raceway, the one with Peach's Castle, you can actually drive off the course and explore her castle in your cart. Like, you're going to lose the race because everybody's going to pass you up, but you could actually like move off, and I thought that was really cool. I like games where you can find something that's off the pathway that you're supposed to be, and kind of explore, almost like you weren't supposed to be there. So,
yeah, I like games that sort of give that sense of, I mean, you know, they know you're breaking the rules in this way, but I like games where it feels like you can sort of break the rules like that.
And I think what's sad is in later versions of that track, of that course that they'll make, I think in Mario Kart 8 and it might be in 7 also, they actually closed off the castle, so you can't drive around in it anymore, and that really bummed me out.
That's a shame. But yeah, that's one thing I enjoy, is being able to sort of break the bounds of what I'm supposed to be able to do and just kind of mess around. What other worlds and levels have you guys really enjoyed just kind of exploring?
Well,
You go.
Go ahead.
well, I'm reminded we were talking about the Mario Kart 64, where you actually can go off the map and explore around. There was a old rumor. I'm going to date myself because I am old as this rumor. But in the original Battlezone arcade game, I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but there was in the background of that game was a little volcano, a little erupting volcano, which was just a little triangle, a little dot shooting out of it. And there was a persistent rumor for years that you could just drive, you keep on going in that game until you hit that volcano. And you could drive up the side of the volcano, down into the caldera, and drive around in a little castle that was supposed to be inside. None of that was true, unfortunately. Like, you really can't go anywhere in that game, but it actually prompted the developers to add the little homing missiles that will seek you out and blow you up if you dork around too much in the level without engaging the enemy tanks.
Battlezone's a great game.
Battlezone's great.
I've never heard of that game.
You got it.
I'm a child.
3D.
Wait, how old is this game?
80 or 81, something like that. It's an old arcade game where you are a tank. So it's a vector game, meaning that.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah, all the graphics are just lines connecting to other lines, a la Asteroids or Tempest or games like that. And you had it was a first person 3D game where at a time where something like that would be pretty mind blowing.
I kind of got introduced to this genre through remember those old Java applet games they used to have in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it was really cool because you could run a game in your browser, and that was super revolutionary. But the only things they could clone at those times were these old kind of vector games that weren't very processor intensive. So that's how I got introduced to the genre.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were interesting.
They're very
they're from a very different time.
Yeah, for a different time, a completely different way of drawing graphics. Instead of rasterizing your screen, you have just, in my opinion, what are just absolutely gorgeous, perfectly straight lines connecting, to other lines, kind of to build the objects in the game.
It was really cool what they did to create the illusion of three-dimensionality.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it really well, which kind of blows my mind to this day. I kind of want to see a modern take on that now, but I don't know how well it would play with modern audiences.
I mean, there are games that kind of emulate the style. I mean, Geometry Wars is a pretty famous example of that style of game.
Well, Geometry Wars is more like I don't know. I haven't played it, but it's more like a 2D-ish. I don't know.
Yeah, well, a lot of these were 2D games.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like Asteroid is what I'm thinking of.
Right.
In that realm. Yeah. So, one game world that stuck with me that I've explored a lot of because I played this game many times. I loved the Hong Kong level in the first Deus Ex. I don't know if you guys have played. You folks have played Deus Ex, right? So you have.
Yeah, a long time ago. It's been a while, but
yeah,
it was a great game.
So I'm gonna spoil a bit of a by now 19-year-old game. So most of the game, it seems like you're in. Like, it doesn't deviate that much from a standard FPS. Like, you have RPG elements. So that much was revolutionary for its time, because you didn't think of these kinds of games existing back then. But what wasn't, but it's very, the structure of the game up until then is very mission based. Like, you have to go to point A and accomplish B task, etc. And there are branching paths to get to it, but you're essentially just doing missions all the way up until you hit Hong Kong, and then the game just massively opens up. And now it starts feeling more like a sandbox you can play around in. And I remember the music that plays in the background in there. The music's very memorable. You're finally going around just like talking to people instead of firing your gun at them and shooting them. Although there is a bit of talky bits earlier, that this is really the first time where it feels like you can kind of go anywhere and do anything. So that's what's memorable to me about it, is just being able to. It's the context of not having that freedom and then all of a sudden having that freedom that made exploring that kind of level interesting. Bones, anything that you found super interesting to explore?
So a big game that I loved playing with my mom when I was a kid was the original Beyond Good and Evil.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah. I love the setting of Beyond Good and Evil. I love it's this alien planet called Hillys, right? And yeah, you have just a wonderful amount of environmental variety. You have this basically like quasi-Mediterranean city that you can go to and go to different shops and talk to all the people. But there's also these caves and mines full of charmingly bizarre wildlife, often very creepy or just always unique monsters and animals to observe and take photos of. God, I loved the photography in that game.
It was an interesting game for me when I played it, because I made the mistake of playing it on PC with mouse and keyboard, which really wasn't designed for.
Oh no, it's not.
I did not have a gamepad at the time when I played that game. But yeah, what really struck me about the world is that you're right. It has like all this variety, but it also kind of feels like a coherent world. Like, I could imagine all these things existing side by side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It all comes together really well, and there's a bit towards the end game where you've been upgrading your hovercraft for ages at this point, and now finally you have the entire world map that you can explore at once. It's not you've basically explored all of the main environments individually in sequence, over the course of the various story missions, but you just come to this point where you can go to anywhere all at once, anytime, leading up to, now I'm going to go into space and fight the bad guys or whatever. And that there was just something about that, just I found the progression system really satisfying, of gradually, you have to work to work to earn the upgrades to your hovercraft and to your outside the hovercraft exploratory elements as well. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's just a very satisfying experience, and it's a wonderful world to experience, and its charm and variety, and
it's almost Metroidvania-ish in the
yeah,
way that you keep unlocking upgrades to your hovercraft that allow you to explore more and more of the world and unlock new levels.
yeah. I think Metroidvania is a really apt comparison that I would have never have thought to consider before now, because I wasn't cognizant of a lot of broader gaming stuff until very recently.
Yeah, I mean, I admit that like my views are skewed by only playing like a subset of genres. If you start talking about comparisons to like strategy games, I'm
Yeah.
out. But yeah, it's a world that I mean, full disclosure, I wasn't a huge fan of the game on the whole, but it's a world that I would love to revisit, and I'm interested to
Yeah.
see how they handle it in the sequel, which I guess is a prequel. I'm not entirely sure.
It's a
what's going
prequel,
on.
yes,
prequel,
but
yeah.
I cannot in good faith comment on Beyond Good and Evil 2 in any sort of like reasonable way, so I'm just not going to. It's
I
it's
just
just
don't.
something that I'm too personally invested in. I can keep myself at a remove in a lot of situations, but to some extent. Yeah, that
Well,
one's
we welcome subjectivity on this podcast.
yeah, no, I realize that, but it's a case where I don't want to let myself get too intense about it.
Oh, that's fair. What I'll say is, I think they're going more like space exploration with this, and it's just gonna sound weird. I'm gonna miss the hovercraft. I'm gonna miss the feeling of just the well, it wasn't exactly leisurely, but I'm gonna miss the feeling of just kind of boating between islands and messing around that way.
Yeah.
And I wish they'd kept some version of that, but we'll see what they do with it.
Yeah.
It could be interesting. As long as they don't No Man's Sky it, I think they can do something interesting with space exploration. So a couple of other worlds that I think were super interesting, and I don't know how you folks feel about these. I really like what the Deus Ex sequels did with their kind of big hub worlds. So let's forget about Invisible War. We can just all forget that it ever existed. Human Revolution did really well with both Detroit and Hengsha, I think. I don't know. Have you guys played Human Revolution or Mankind Divided?
Personally only ever played the first game.
Oh, okay.
I haven't played any. I'm sorry.
I would highly recommend Deus Ex and Human Revolution. Invisible War, I would recommend against playing, and Mankind Divided, I'd recommend if you really like Human Revolution. What I'll say is, what they do sort of in the Deus Ex sequels is they give you that freedom that you get from Hong Kong in the original Deus Ex right from the get-go. So you're pretty much after the first mission dropped in the middle of Detroit, and you have to find, you can pretty much just navigate anywhere you want in this hub world, and figure out how to do missions accordingly. And similarly, when you get to Hengsha, which is in the lore of the game, imagine a layered city sort of built on top of Shanghai, the existing Shanghai. That's what it is in the lore of the game. This game also takes place in like the late 2020s, so apparently in 7 years there'll just be a giant floating city over Shanghai.
Can't wait.
Yeah, it's gonna be dope. I'm super stoked for that. But yeah, the fact that you have the freedom to explore and just walk around this really densely populated area is neat to me. And they do the same thing again for Prague in Mankind Divided, although it's a little bit less densely populated than Detroit or Hengsha. And I think it's because they make the spaces a little bit wider and a little bit more open, so you don't get that kind of claustrophobic feel of walking into people. But yeah, I think they do a good job of just giving you freedom and letting you run with it. So one thing I wanted to ask is what makes exploring a world, just in general, interesting to you?
Well, one example I can think of would be Jade Empire. Almost the entire game, the just the aesthetics of it are for a fantasy role playing game. It's not something that's set in some weird simulacrum of medieval Europe or whatever. It's a Far East styled game.
Yeah, it's Jade Empire. Its visuals are its world is very broadly sketched, but it's nonetheless a distinct broad sketch.
Right.
It's not something that you see enough of still.
Right, and there's some unique moments there are games there are moments in that game where you literally ascend to some deity's idea of heaven.
Yeah.
And you get to knock around in heaven for a little while.
God, I hate that part. That part's really hard.
The part with the fox, with the topless foxes that don't have nipples on their breasts.
Yeah, that's a little weird. That part's a little weird.
That stuff's great, but I'm just talking about the part where you have to fight ghosts, and if you didn't optimize your fucking martial arts correctly, then you can't kill them.
Yeah, I mean, the combat itself is just sort of it's not great. It's not a very well developed combat system. It's mostly a rock paper scissors type thing where your fast attack is will beat their strong attack, and then your strong attack will beat their shields, or their shield will block your star. I don't know. The combat was not anything particularly impressive about it. I always enjoy the game more for the atmosphere.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. It's a game that's a lot more interesting as just in terms of the world it creates than, I wouldn't say how you interact with it, because the way you interact with it is generally interesting. But the combat in that game it's serviceable. It's not bad. It's there.
It's BioWare combat.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I would have preferred it as as more of a turn-based thing, like a Knights of the Old Republic style combat system. But I guess it doesn't really hold with the the idea that you're a martial artist and you're like the ultimate super martial artist guy or girl.
I think if they updated it for modern, like if they ever made a Jade Empire 2, which they never will.
They absolutely not.
I think they could make the combat genuinely interesting.
Yes.
But it's definitely the kind of thing where there's a lot of the interesting combat stuff sort of happens outside of combat itself. There's a lot of min-maxing on stats and on I think they're gems or whatever that you equip.
Yep.
Yeah, that's sort of where the interesting action happens.
Yeah. No, I think you're totally right. That in a way that a lot of BioWare games have not benefited from, I think Jade Empire actually could benefit from the more dynamic, the advances in dynamic action-based engines that they've been doing lately. As long as they don't just put guns in their hands.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to spoil part of Jade Empire right now for the listeners. There was that one character with the gun.
Yeah, voiced by John Cleese.
Englishman, who's played by John Cleese. And he's just running around. He's the only character with any sort of rifle in the game. And he's just running around trying to shoot you, and it's fantastic.
He's the most delightful imperialist you could ever meet. It's a great sequence.
And what's great is you can learn his quote-unquote technique, which is basically you get his rifle, and now you can blow people away with this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It's fucking hilarious.
Yes.
Yeah, what's his name? Sir Roderick Ponce von Fontelbottom or something?
Something like that, yeah.
It's the most fake ass English name that they could come up with.
It's so beautifully caricatured, and I will check to make sure what the name is in a little later. But I'd like to talk about what I like in world design for a second.
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Yeah, using Beyond Good and Evil as a reference point, what I think is really necessary is that you have to have structuralism to your world. No matter how wide or narrow it is, it needs to be structured in some sort of effectual, compelling way. Like Hillys, the planet in Beyond Good and Evil, basically starts as, I'm on a small island with a lighthouse, and this island is in the middle of this body of water, and as you traverse the body of water, you sort of learn the outline, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Sorry. you learn the outline of the environment where there are these little branching paths that will lead to mines or to the city or whatever else, and you just grasp that there's a broad structure at work with your island back at the center essentially, and I think that's just that's really really necessary.
Yeah,
Um,
it needs to feel like it needs to feel like wherever you start is a part of some larger whole and a
exactly.
part that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Keeping that or that relationship, that spatial relationship between where you start and where you go, organic is also necessary. Um, but I just like even if it damages verisimilitude a bit, I'm fine with it feeling like a video game level in terms of how it's structured, as long as it's in a way that's coherent and means that it's it's navigable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's big for me too. Is just being like making it easy for me to kind of interact with and move through that world.
yeah,
And there are games like platformers where it is difficult, and that's part of the charm. Like I don't want Mario to turn into a walking simulator, but there's that's the point of the game. Then like exploration becomes a challenge,
yeah.
and
Yeah, no, a wide open space isn't a bad thing either. It can certainly be used. I think it, like looking at Mario Odyssey as an example, the benefit of that game is that there are so many different environments of varying sizes and varying structures that you do have room for something like the sand level, which is basically just mostly a wide open space that happens to have, individualized structured parts within it. And you're just sort of like traversing the desert between those major parts. You can have
yeah.
that, that you can also have something that's a little more, to me, more
Calm.
interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
what I would say about Odyssey, what it gets really right about how to design these kinds of levels,
mhm.
is it initializes you in the level in a way where you can sort of see how the level is laid out in front of you,
Yes,
and then it very much fits with the ethos of if you can see it, you can go to it.
yes,
And then the challenge becomes, okay, how do I get to that point that I see far off in the distance? And makes a game out of it.
yeah,
And the levels that I think are a little bit less successful are the levels where it's hard to see where you have to go. So levels like the Lake Kingdom and the Snow Kingdom or whatever it's called are levels where you don't exactly see the whole thing laid out in front of you. Whereas the other levels where you do sort of see that whole thing laid out in front of you, I think tend to be a little bit more satisfying to interact with.
yeah. That's fair. The Snow Kingdom was definitely a weak point for me, but the Lake Kingdom actually was a highlight to me.
Oh,
I
okay, yeah.
I think the Lake Kingdom works because I think there's an immediate area that you can grasp, and then once you get beyond that, you have to start like you get to delve into a sort of a sense of discovery. Like I liked that I'm looking at the bottom of the lake. I'm not sure quite where to go. I see a hole. I'm gonna swim through this hole, and I don't know quite where it's gonna go, but that's kind of exciting in its own way. And I think that coheres better than some of the other exploratory experiences in video games.
Oh yeah, that's true. It is tense because I believe there are no cheap to capture at the entrance. So you're just kind of like, oh my god, am I going to run out of air? Am I going to run out of air? Am I
Yeah,
going to run out of air? And it does add a little bit of tension, which is somewhat at odds with the more serene feeling of the rest of the level. But I do like how they, I do like that it does add that urgency.
yeah, yeah. It's
Wouldn't otherwise be.
definitely a complicated design that is. They probably maybe didn't 100% nail, but I think they were most of the way there, and they put a lot of ambition into that one. I would argue. And
Yeah,
also
it's
I think sorry, the zipper aspect of that level is so good.
Yeah,
oh
that's a cute
it's
mechanic. I like that.
that was one of the few things that wasn't spoiled in like pre-release footage.
Yeah,
So when I saw it for the first time, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is adorable and
yeah.
hilarious."
It's kind of that same vibe that you get from like Yoshi's Crafted World or whatever, but in this specific context where it's like, oh, I'm actually controlling the environment instead of just reacting to it. And that's really exciting. In addition to just being very charming, but yeah, I would. Another aspect of world design that's really important to me, and this will be a weird, very kind of narrow one, is I think I like wildlife. Like what I loved about Beyond Good and Evil was I liked going into this unpredictable space where there's all kinds of there's a variety of species, and some of them were giant bugs that tried to eat me, and some of them were just like placid like slimes on the walls. And I loved that variety, and I just love that sense of life to the place, you know.
Oh, I completely 100% agree with that. I love fictional animals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be animals. Like it can easily be like a communal space, a town space with a variety of, different kinds of peoples, and that's equally exciting. But it's about that sense of life, basically.
I think that's one of the things that kind of, I mean, given the limitations of the original Metroid, I think that's one of the aspects of it that really kind of fleshed out the world. Is like most of the, quote unquote enemies in Metroid, the original one, were basically just the local fauna,
Yeah.
kind of doing their thing.
Yeah, I've only seen the original Metroid in the context of watching my girlfriend play it, but
Yeah.
but I found it really, genuinely exciting and fascinating to watch because you're exploring these cave environments, and there's all sorts of weirdly shaped aliens that you don't know a lot about them, but you grasp their immediate context in terms of how they're going to affect your life right now.
Yeah. Some of them are aggressive, some of them aren't. Some of them, they help you progress the level. I mean, Super Metroid doubles down on that by having, helpful aliens that teach you how to use specific abilities that you gain during the game. And there's other portions, there's particularly right in the beginning of Super Metroid, there's a section where you just run across little space bugs that do nothing but fly away when they get too close. It's just
I love that. That's my shit. I cannot wait to play the Metroids. They do seem like they'll probably be up my alley in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's really exciting to me about that, and this is gonna sound a little flippant, it's almost like learning by killing.
Yeah.
Like you start to understand how these animals function by engaging them in combat. And to your point earlier, that like making the world feel alive, it makes the world feel like a real place that exists outside of you exploring it.
Yes.
When there's wildlife all over the place, which to me is interesting. Even if it's like really standard wildlife, like in the Dragon Age games there are bears, and bears have a reputation for fucking your shit up.
God, the bears.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And there are some bears which are angrier than others.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that even adds character to the world. The fact that there are bears all over the place and they're super aggressive and want to destroy you,
Yes,
is something that adds character to the world. So yeah, I'm all about fictional animals and real animals. I'm especially all about the nugs in.
Oh my god, the nugs! They're so good.
I can't tell if you mean that they're so adorable or so delicious.
I mean, they're a little of both, but no, I mostly mean that they're very cute. I mean, like Liliana was always one of my favorite characters in the series. Her pet Schmooples is important to me.
Yeah.
I love how if you make Liliana what do they call it? I'm going to call her the Pope. Sorry, because I don't know what they're actually called. You make Liliana the Pope, and I believe if you make her not the Murder Pope, then she has Schmooples in her like official portrait.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is hilarious to me.
So good.
Spoilers for Dragon Age Inquisition,
yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you get to decide who's Pope. Which, I mean, we've all fantasized about. That's a real video game power fantasy for me as a Catholic.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that. The other thing I enjoyed, speaking of nugs, was they have the giant nugs, the nugalopes. You can just ride around a giant nug, and it's hilarious.
It's so cute and good. Also, is that a cat? Have I been hearing a cat in the background?
That might be my squeaky chair. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
It's okay.
It's all right. It's a squeaky cat. We can roll with that. Wait, are there cats in Dragon Age? Are
Yes.
there?
I think there are.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, one of the backgrounds that you have in the first game in Origins is that you're the heir of a royal family that gets super fucked over by the groups that are kind of taking power in the wake of Logain's actions at the beginning of the game. Spoiler alert for this 10-year-old RPG. Um, and you have a cat. You have a cat that like it's physically animated as roaming around the castle, and it will also be in your inventory after the game starts.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's
I only
great.
ever played the Circle Mage origin, so I didn't get to see that. And I remember the dog, of course,
Yes,
Bark
the
Spawn.
yes, sir. Avon Barksdale.
Oh, that's what you call them. I called the one in Dragon Age Origins Bark Spawn because that's what they're canonically called in Awakening.
Yeah.
And I called the one in Dragon Age 2 Ferelden.
Barkspawn is classic for sure, and yeah, and also Ferelden is also very good. But no, to me he'll always be Avon Barksdale. Which is,
I completely am behind that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
animals make a world interesting
Yeah.
to
they
me.
bring life. I will admit, as much as I find the dog in Dragon Age charming, specifically the Origins one, who is in your party. I find him charming, but I didn't really do a lot with him. I didn't find him really satisfying to play with or anything. Like I
Yeah,
sympathize
he's not
with
a
why
good.
people I sympathize with why people preferred him in the sense that like, well, he's never going to randomly decide that he hates me because I was nice to someone or whatever. Like I'm sympathetic to that, but he's just not that satisfying to me, either in
Yeah,
combat
he's
or
not a good party member,
no.
which is why I like what they did in Dragon Age 2, where the dog is just kind of like an accessory
Yeah, the
that helps
dog
you
as
in
is
combat.
basically a summon is not a bad idea. I do wish the summons in those games were better in general, though. I remember being so excited. Like the very first trailer for Origins has a giant spider show up, or Morgan turns into a spider, either way. But they like have a giant animal monster fighting for you, and it seems so dynamic and it's so perfunctory in the games.
Yeah, I think you can turn into a bear in Dragon Age Origins. I forget. It's been a while since I played. I remember turning myself into another animal and having fun with that.
Yes.
And I'm sad that's not in Dragon Age Inquisition
Me too.
because I think it's blood magic, and you're not supposed to do blood magic. Anyway, yeah, that's what I've enjoyed about exploring those particular worlds. So just to wrap this up, what kinds of settings do you want to explore that you haven't explored much yet in video games? Oh, tough question.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to think of
It is
something.
a tough question.
Yeah.
Um,
It's I guess maybe it's a failure of imagination on my part, but I can't think of something that without getting presented with it first. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, so one setting that I've kind of wanted to explore is that I want to see more interactions between wildlife and science.
yeah.
So more the aesthetic is the common aesthetic of this is called solar punk. So more like greenery with technology. The only I think Crisis has a bit of it, but it's more dystopian. I would love the only place that really comes to mind is the Solarian world from Mass Effect 3, where you're in that lab with all the greenery. That's the only place that really comes to mind with that aesthetic. And it's an aesthetic I really like, so I want to see more of that in games.
Absolutely. There's unfortunately just certain things about the industry that don't lend themselves well to that specific aesthetic for whatever reason.
I
think
mean, just
I think
like,
Fallout
not even
kind
just
of
the
invokes that at some points, but it continues to have less opportunity to do so over time.
because of all the what's happening outside the vaults.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, also just greenery is super hard to render.
It is.
It's
It is.
really processor intensive or graphics card intensive. So I understand why they don't have that much of it. It's just something I'd like to see more of.
Yes.
In the latest Resident Evil game, there's the part two remake. You go into a lab that has been overtaken by greenery. It's a really short section of the game, but it's really cool. Just kind of walking into this, this scientific lab, and then all of a sudden there's big old tree branches and vines just hanging around everywhere. And it's kind of nature has just kind of choked the science away. And of course,
Yeah.
there's like zombie plant people.
Oh, cool.
I love.
Oh, it's kind of like the lab level from Arkham Asylum, like Poison Ivy's level.
Kind of, yeah.
There's sections of Portal 2 that are kind of like that. Where,
Right. Yeah. The old aperture.
Yeah, Aperture Labs
Yeah.
is kind of falling apart in sections,
Yeah.
and it's
And
become
you can see sort of like the sunlight filtering through.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I think that goes
yeah.
more to your like it's more dystopian than it is like an actual cohesive like nature and science living together in harmony and
Yeah, that's exactly what I
Yeah.
what I want to see
See a
more
lot
of.
of
It's
that.
more of that, like, this is not a battle between nature and science. This is kind of like not necessarily a symbiotic relationship, but they live together.
Yeah. Some degree of synthesis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a completely different note, one of the other settings I want to see more of that's not in a lot of video games is, there's a lot of Europe in video games, there's a lot of obviously North America and a lot of East Asia, but there's a lot less of like Africa, specifically Sub-Saharan Africa. You still see some Mediterranean Africa in games, but not a lot of Sub-Saharan Africa, not a lot of Southeast Asia.
Yes.
well, Metal Gear
So-
Solid 5 had a big didn't they have a big Africa presence? That's where you were in a part of that game, right? You don't play Metal
Probably,
Gear-
I just haven't played it, so it's not I can't really say one way or the other. The only game I've played that had a bit in like a modern African city was Uncharted 4, which I don't know if you're in Antananarivo or some other unnamed Malagasy city, but yeah, you get to walk around through a market and interact with a lemur and have it steal your apple, which unfortunately I believe is the only lemur in the game, which feels like a ripoff.
Oh, tragic.
So much of it is set in Madagascar. I
Lemurs.
mean, there's more to Madagascar than lemurs.
That is very true. That is important, but also lemurs are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overwatch has a map that's kind of basically a Wakanda-esque modern like sci-fi African city that's really gorgeous and well done. It's a multiplayer combat game, so it's not like you don't get a lot of time to soak in the environment or anything, so it's pretty limited. But they have several. They have at least 2 or 3 maps in Africa that I really enjoyed that one in particular.
Marvel
Yeah.
Ultimate Alliance also has a Wakanda level as well. So if you want to do Fantasy Africa, you can play Ultimate Alliance.
I do like these sort of Afrofuturist settings. 'Cause
Yeah.
they always have like a unique spin on sci-fi, which I really dig. What other settings do you guys want to see more of?
One thing that came to mind for me was the journey to the center of the Earth, and just seeing because I mean we scientifically know kind of what the inside of the Earth looks like, but I've never seen a video game actually kind of like explore the inner depths of our planet, and they can go to like some weird fantastical areas with that, but also maybe mix in a little bit of what is actually in there. I don't know. That seems like an area that hasn't been tackled.
That's a really cool idea.
There should be more video game adaptations of Jules Verne novels.
That's
Yeah.
actually really true, though. Also,
Yeah.
going back to, sorry, this is gonna be a weird tangent, but the solar punk and nature and such discussions reminded me of. Do you remember there was a Journey to the West game that was a sci-fi
Enslaved?
enslaved?
Odyssey,
Yes.
yeah, Odyssey to the West. Yes, I've played it.
That is some. I mean, I realize it goes back to the same thing of what you very effectively, defined as a distinction between like nature and tech and conflict versus nature and tech, in synthesis, but it's one of the only non franchise examples I can think of where they tried to do some of that aesthetically. That game has a lot of other weird stuff going on, but
it's a very bizarre game.
yeah.
I mean, it's also not a super fun game.
No, it's bad.
But it's a game that I'm glad got made because you don't see that many games take those kinds of risks.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Actually, this is also going to be silly, but bear with me here. Something that I would like to see more of, or at least I am seeing some of it, but I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing it by the right people. I'm not seeing the right context, the context I'd like to see, which is there's a small wave of again, bear with me here, of kind of biblical games out there. Like Dante's.
Oh, like the New Testament?
Hold on a second.
Because that exists. That is a game where you're the savior.
Hold on. That is not exactly what I'm going for here.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
We have Darksiders, right? Which just inexplicably released the third entry last fall. That shocked the shit out of me. I thought for sure that was dead. There's Darksiders. And there was the Dante's Inferno game back in 2010, which the less said about the better in general. So in both cases, the most high-profile examples I can think of are they're God of War-alikes that kind of vaguely will co-opt certain biblical things, like concepts like the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, hell imagery, classical hell imagery, but not really stuff that's accurate to the text.
Bayonetta does a little bit of this too, right?
Yes.
With the angels.
Yeah, Bayonetta 1 ends with you killing God.
Yeah, I should finish that game at some point.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I didn't know you killed God.
Yeah,
God knows what he did.
All I know is that I think they take the biblical descriptions of angels a little more literally than
we're quite intent.
Like the whole they have wings and they're all in white and they have halos, that kind of
So yeah, so basically, and of those three, I would definitely point to Bayonetta as the strongest of them, personally. But in all cases, basically, they're action games that are sort of they're taking what they feel like taking, which is the creepy, edgy stuff that they can find, and just using that for their action game context, their violent context. And I think I know this is a weird tangent, I'm genuinely sorry, but I just think there's a lot more potential that you could actually get out of religious lore and religious worlds in a more general sense, not even just Judeo-Christian specifically or anything, than is actually being mined by games.
Well, I think it comes down to like you said, they're just mostly action games, right? But I don't know if anybody's taken it actually seriously, biblical times or anything like that. Not that I want to play a game based on the Bible. I think it would be really boring.
I'm sorry. I might be the only person who wants this, and I'm okay with
No, I mean, there is, like I mentioned earlier, there is the New Testament, which is sort of like an RPG based in biblical times. It's made by one guy, and it's not very well made. It's also for free, so you can just go download it and play it right now.
Okay, no, that's not what I'm looking for either.
Yeah, so if you want a big budget or seriously made biblical RPG or just an RPG set in biblical times, I think there's room for that. Yeah. I think to your other point, there's also room to make games that take religious texts as more, or take a more holistic approach to religious texts. They don't just strip mine them for the interesting imagery. They take the contents of the text seriously, and I don't think I see a lot of that in games.
Yeah.
Well, there's always Super Noah's Ark 3D.
The very accurate Super Noah's Ark 3D.
Mm-hmm. Your Wolfenstein Total Conversion.
Oh yeah, there's also that fictional game from The Simpsons where you try to just convert people.
It's almost, the funny part of that's almost what Super 3D Noah's Ark, whatever the heck it is,
was.
It literally is a first person converter or something like that.
That's.
I guess what I'm trying to say is Okay, we talked about Dragon Age fairly substantively earlier. Dragon Age uses a lot of religious themery. That's not a word. Thematics. Dragon Age, particularly in Inquisition, has a lot of religious narrative and thematics going on. Like your character is very messianic and in Inquisition. Like you literally become both a Jesus and a Moses analog at various points in the story. Which is something I'm really fond of.
I do like that. One thing that the Dragon Age setting has done in particular is that it is a setting that does take its fictional religion seriously and integrate into society in a way that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's not just there is everybody lives under the chantry and they control everything, or here's some insignificant sect or cult and you deal with them a little bit. It is a thing that is part of society that has some power, and its influence is felt throughout society. It feels like a realistic part of that world, and I think that it doesn't take a specific existing religion seriously, but it does create this religion and make it a serious part of the world.
Yes,
which I appreciate.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Is that's what I'd love to see more of. I'm sorry for that though.
No, it's fine. I think it's a very intelligent tangent to take. And I do enjoy the chantry. If nothing else, I do enjoy the chantry and the really stupid hats. So.
Oh no, my people are definitely very good at the big stupid hats. If nothing else.
Yeah, so anything else you guys want to say about your favorite video game settings or settings you'd like to see more of?
Yeah, I mean, this probably given the recent history of the Aliens games, the Aliens versus Colonial Marines, Alien versus whatever. I think this is kind of a be careful what you wish for type thing. But I've always wanted to see more of the H.R. Giger-esque architecture. That you see briefly in some of the video games and, of course, the movies. I mean, as much as a turkey as Prometheus turned out to be, I mean, I do really love the art direction of that movie, and I would like to see a game world built out of that.
Yeah, I think
that seems like it could be really good.
Like something like Mass Effect vein, I think would be really cool.
Yeah.
Something that's not strictly an alien shooter, although I mean I wouldn't mind that either. Just something that kind of dives.
As long as Gearbox doesn't make it, I think will be.
Yeah.
Well, Gearbox didn't really make most of it. They kind of just contracted it out to TimeGate without telling anybody. But that's a whole other saga.
It sure is.
So yeah, that's definitely an aesthetic that I think we could stand to see a little more of in video games.
Yeah.
There's all these interesting settings. You know what? They should pay us to come up with video game ideas. They really shouldn't.
Yeah.
My ideas are all terrible. But
hey, real quick, one thing that just came to me. Speaking of Gearbox, was is there a setting in a game that you were really excited to see, and then the game turned out to be shit? Because one that comes to mind is We Happy Few. For me, I was really by the prospect of going into a world that was kind of like that old show The Prisoner, in this kind of very 60s retro futuristic thing, and I wanted to play it. I played it and I wanted to be in the world and explore everything that it had, and it just turned out to be dog shit. Like it was one of the worst games I've ever played. So was there a game where that was like that for you?
Oh yeah, I have one example right off the top of my head. Have you guys heard of this Metroidvania called Apotheon?
Yeah.
No, actually.
Speaking of gods and stuff.
Yeah, so imagine a 2D game with the aesthetic of everything having been painted on Greek pottery.
Oh.
It looks gorgeous and incredible.
Yeah.
Like they do a lot of cool things with shadows and the way it's animated. It looks incredible. Mm-hmm. And that game is just a fucking chore to play.
Yeah.
The combat is awful.
Yeah.
It's clumsy. It's really, any ranged weapon is basically impossible to use or fire accurately. There's so much tedium in terms of like obtaining weapons and upgrades and shit like that. It's just not at all fun to play, but it looks incredible, and I love the setting. So yeah, great question. That's a game that off the top of my head strikes me as, you know, something I was super excited to delve into and explore, and just ended up being a chore to play.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any other examples of those? Again, feeling like the teacher at the class.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's if you're not like thinking of it like immediately, then yeah, these kinds of things would be hard to come up with just on the spot.
The only thing I could think of would be Alien Hominid. You remember
I haven't heard of that game.
Oh, you didn't like that game? I love that game.
I liked it. I just remember it being way too frustratingly hard to really get into.
I've played. I forget the name of the developers right now, but those guys, you know, they had kind of an evolving cartoon aesthetic over the years, from Alien Hominid to Castle Crashers to Battle Block Theater, and such. That it's a pretty fun aesthetic that they work with.
Yeah,
I forget again what they're named, but
The Behemoth.
yeah.
Jinx.
Yeah, is the name of the studio.
Yeah, I mean, along the lines, I'm reminded a little bit of Destroy All Humans. Another game that was a lot more fun in, I guess, concept and execution.
That's my answer. I'm sorry, I had to pounce on you after you pointed it out, but that is my answer. I loved Destroy All Humans when I was a kid. I loved the 50s, 60s satire stuff. I loved the classic gray alien imagery and the UFO and stuff. Yeah, just, you know, exploring and destroying the retro satire Americana. It does not age well.
No, it does not.
No, it does not come together as well when you're not an edgy 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So I love a version of that that's smarter and more thoughtful.
Do you think that's why there hasn't been a new one in so many years?
Well, I think they just stopped performing well at a certain point. Like, I think there was
Yes, some franchises just die for whatever reason.
They did the first two. The first two are, like, you know, staggered releases and were developed in their own ways. And then you had like 2 or 3 spin-offs all in really quick succession that were really done.
I didn't even hear about the spin-offs.
I didn't even know they had spin-offs. Are they like
exclusive one where you were basically just controlling the giant donut boy from that one Treehouse of Horror episode? and one
Lard Lad.
Yes, it was. Yeah, you were basically Lard Lad. Like, that was it. Just smashing shit with your donut. And then the other one was officially like the main third entry, but production-wise, it was basically a spin-off because it was so cheap and broken. It was called Path of the Furon. Because that one is like the next entry. Like, it's set in the 70s, like the first two were in the 50s and 60s. But it's so cheap and so tiny, like just so small in production scale and so broken. And it came out really, really quickly right after 2 and the Donut Boy one. That it basically
so the franchise like
that collectively killed the series.
Is it like Kingdom Hearts where the spin-offs are really lore heavy?
No, it's not like the Kingdom Hearts games.
Okay. Because I was gonna say Kingdom Hearts sort of fits the bill for me as a game where I really was excited about the setting, and then I played the combat and I hate it.
Yeah. No, the combat's really repetitive and dull, and the level designs are also really repetitive and dull.
I kind of had that.
Some of the worlds are really cool, and some of the worlds have like really cool ideas in them. Like, I love some of the ideas in Wonderland, and some of the ideas in like Monstro and Halloween Town. But yeah, some of the level design in that game is not great.
Peter Pan, the boat, Captain Hook's boat.
It's so claustrophobic. You can't see what's going on.
Let's have this horrifically cramped environment as your last Disney World, where you can't see anything and you're being asked to fight like 20 enemies at once.
The sad thing about that game is the best level is the one that's not Disney based. It's Hollow Bastion.
Yeah, Hollow Bastion.
The one that's It's by far the best level, and the design of that level is great. The aesthetics are incredible. It's actually fun to interact with it, and it's
five
just,
times
it's not a
bigger
Disney
than
World.
any other level.
Yeah.
which allows for some legitimate, like, interesting design and scope and all of that stuff. Yeah. Yeah, well, have fun
Yeah.
with the sequels.
Yeah.
I've heard the sequels actually have much better level design. Kingdom Hearts 3 in particular. But it's going to be a few months before I get to that. I still haven't beat the first Kingdom Hearts. I'm nearing the end, and I couldn't beat the final boss rush, so now I'm going back to grind like 10 levels. Jeez.
Okay. Yeah, that's always a great way to endear yourself to a game in the home stretch, right?
I mean, I also kind of suck at games, so if I were actually good at games, I could probably just power through the final boss rush. But I suck at games, so I have to grind like 10 levels over where I need to be.
Hey, don't be down on yourself, man. It's not an easy game. Like,
It's way too hard for its aesthetics.
Exactly.
That's all I'll say.
For a 2002 art game.
Yeah, we need to stop talking about Kingdom Hearts. We devoted like an entire podcast to
I'm
Kingdom
sorry,
Hearts
I
last
could
time.
talk about Kingdom Hearts for so many hours.
I mean, it's my fault this time for bringing it up. But yeah, anyway, I think this is a good note on which to call this podcast to a close. On complaining about Kingdom Hearts, as one does on this podcast.
I want to thank you
if
for
you'd like to
joining the 45th annual Complaining About Kingdom Hearts podcast.
Yeah.
When are they going to add
I mean,
Sonic
it's-
to Kingdom Hearts? That's what I want to know.
He would fit so well with it, though.
Would though, especially the entities from Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic 06 and Sonic Forces.
I mean, those belong in this kind of game. It's especially because like some of the anime characters. I don't know why I'm calling them anime characters, not anime. Some of the Final Fantasy characters that they added to Kingdom Hearts, they gave them such spiky hair that they might as well be hedgehogs.
Yeah.
So, they're like so brooding and edgy. Like when did Squall become such a dick? That's what I want to know.
Squall kind of already wasn't.
Yeah, but he's even more of a jerk in this game. Like, I don't know. Sorry, I should stop complaining about Kingdom Hearts. So if you'd like to keep up to date with the podcast, you can follow us on our website. That's right, we have a website at avocadogamescast.wordpress.com. We post each episode. We have a link dump. We try to fact check the things we said.
We fail
Sometimes
horribly.
we say things. Pardon me.
We fail horribly.
I mean, we succeed generally at fact checking. It's more that we say a lot of stupid, false shit on this podcast, mostly by accident, and that's mostly my bad. Sorry, folks.
Look, we're all talking off the cuff here for the most part. It'll happen.
Yeah.
It's not.
My defense is that nobody's paying us to say this shit.
Yes.
So if we're getting paid and lying a lot, that would
Yeah,
be different.
that's the best possible excuse for when your podcast and then you fuck up. Is remember,
Yeah.
we're not getting paid for this. Fuck you.
Yeah, we're not getting paid. Yeah. We're not.
Also, speaking of which, I did just check. Sir Roderick Ponce von Fontelbottom, the Magnificent Bastard, is the full title of John Cleese's character.
Oh, okay, so I had it right, minus the Magnificent Bastard part. Okay, awesome. You can also subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Google Play Music. Just search for Avocado Gamescast. And also make sure you check out the wonderful community that spawned this podcast, The Avocado, at the-avocado.org. Type the character hyphen, not the word hyphen. I don't know why you type the word hyphen. I make this joke at the end of every podcast. I'm sorry.
It makes me laugh.
Well, there you have it. We talked about exploration. We talked about Hot Cops, the video game. We talked about Tetris Battle Royale. It's been a fun time, folks.
Very good.
It has.
Hey, if I could do one more plug for the Avocado, every Tuesday I write a new games column, and I would love for you to all read it and interact in the comments.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
It is a well-written column.
Yeah,
and I
it's
genuinely
very
mean
good.
that.
And,
And it also delves into some video game history, which is always fun to read about. So Bones, you have a column on the Avocado as well about
I do.
video games.
I do. It's called Mid-Aughts Meltdown. It's focused on platforming and adventure game design in the early 2000s and also some RPGs. But we're not getting to that for like a year because that's going to take so much work. But yeah,
you'll have to beat Kingdom Hearts again.
Don't make me think about that. But yeah, it's a semi-autobiographical exploration of game history and game design through the specific framework of what kind of dumb shit did I play when I was a kid, basically. And I'll be publishing oh wait, this is not going to be posted for a couple of weeks. Hold on.
So, by the time this goes up, her next column will be up.
Yes,
so
yes, my next column. Hopefully, another one between after that will also be up. But basically, every few Wednesdays, I can't even say every other, but every few Wednesdays, I'll have a new column up on theavocado.org, and you should check it out. And it won't just be Mid-Aughts Meltdown. I also have a separate like Nintendo devoted series. It's going to be a whole thing. Anyway, but thank you.
Yeah, and other article series we have on the Avocados related to video games. We have bi-weekly video game threads, and we also have a feature called Franchise Festival, written by Singing Breakman, who has appeared on this podcast before.
Yes.
So definitely check that out as well. And there's also stuff that's not related to video games on that website, but we don't need to talk about it.
That's really
fuck TV.
the rest of the Avocado is truly the minor portion of it, isn't it?
Yeah, forget all those movie reviews and other interesting threads.
Yeah.
We're recording this the day of the Oscars.
Yeah,
and we somehow managed to avoid talking about movies almost entirely. So that's got to be some sort of feat.
I would agree with that.
Congratulations to us. We deserve an Oscar for this.
Yeah. They should make a video game Oscars, guys.
Whoa.
I know. Incredible. Mind blown.
Whoa. They should make an Oscars, but for music.
Shut the fuck up.
Guys, we already have that. It's the Juno Awards. It's like Canada's biggest award ceremony. Anyways, have a great day. Thank you all for being on the podcast. Thank you all for listening. And we'll see you in a few weeks for some bullshit we haven't decided yet.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.